Hey everyone, welcome to Move the Finish Line. I'm your host, April Nowlin, and if you're looking for a podcast that's authentic, unfiltered, that may make you laugh and might make you cry, you're in the right place. Get ready for an exciting ride with me and my guests as we share stories of resilience, restoration, and winning at life from everyday women. My goal is to encourage you to break through the barriers that are stopping you from chasing your purpose. All right, let's get ready to move the finish line. Hey everyone, welcome to Move the Finish Line. I am super excited about my guest today. I am your host, April Nowlin. I'm a breakthrough coach and consultant. I help women to cultivate their purpose so they can make an exceptional impact on the greatest amount of people. And so for those of you who've never listened to one of the podcast segments, the whole goal of our segment is to share stories of resilience, restoration, and simply winning at life from everyday women like you and me. So I'm really excited to have my guest today. She's not only a business owner, she's a mom, she's funny as all get out, and I'm proud to say that she is my bestie. I'm so excited to have LaVista Jones here today. She is the founder of 31 Marketplace, and I love what she does, guys. So this is something that I feel like is very unique and it's much needed. So she helps overworked women to find balance between sustainable growth and essential self-care. Now, I don't know about y'all, but that is something that I always need to work on is sustainable growth and taking care of myself. So I hope you guys really enjoy what she has to say today. She's going to share some things with you that for me, I didn't know was as common as it is, but I hope this really blesses you guys. So LaVista, go ahead and take a moment and say hello, introduce yourself to our guests.
Hi, y'all, and thank you, April, for inviting me to be part of your podcast. It is an absolute honor, and I'm so excited to be here. Not only, as your guest, but as your bestie, right? And celebrating the success of the launch of this podcast. So first of all, congratulations. And I am so excited to see the impact that this podcast is going to make in the lives of women everywhere. So with that, I am LaVista. And if you remember Asta LaVista, you will say my name right every single time. I promise. And like April said, I am the founder of 31 Marketplace, which is an agency that does help overworked women. Our secret sauce is blending that systemization and your self-care. The approach is making both of those things simple, personal, and effective. I reside here in Arizona by way of the greatest state ever, Ohio. And, like April said, I am married. I am the wife to my college sweetheart. Some of the listeners will probably know him. His name is Stuart Jones. And we share our home with our 5-year-old son, commonly known in the public as the Cub, and our enormous bull mastiff Tozer. So that's just, a little bit about me.
Yes, thank you for introducing yourself. So she mentioned that she's got a young son and a huge dog. And so both of them will give you lots of hugs if you go to her house. It is full of hugs and I love it.
Yes.
So LaVista, you have a story that you want to share with my listeners about a journey that you've been on for quite some time. And I think it's a very important journey. I think it's a relevant journey. And I think it's something that as women, we don't really talk about publicly a lot. And I know that through your journey, you may have gone through feelings of isolation or, this may only be happening to me or who do I turn to and things like that. So I'm really excited for you to share this story and just your journey to where you are today. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So, I think that my greatest story of resiliency and restoration and thriving and winning in life, like you said, April, is connected to my motherhood journey. So motherhood is something that I knew that I wanted for my life, like literally since I was a little girl. Like people would ask me like, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like, I knew I wanted to be a mom always.
Mm-hmm.
But I joke, but not really a joke that, the whole married thing like came much, much later in life, like maybe like late high school, early college, that I
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, I mean, sure, like I'd like to get married too. But I always knew I wanted to be a mama, and have a family. And so then when I did have the opportunity to get married, and we decided it was time to start making that family, we ran into some roadblocks, right? So
Mm.
we dealt with about 4 years of infertility and all that comes with that. So all of the doctor's appointments, I actually had a couple of surgeries to um, alleviate, issues that they thought were
Mm-hmm.
going on, which did not alleviate said issues that were going on.
Right.
All of the hormone drugs, my husband giving me shots in my stomach at home, going
Mm-hmm.
in for all of the invasive kind of ultrasounds, and, the highs and the lows and the emotional roller coaster that you are just on during a journey like that, with negative pregnancy test after negative pregnancy test after
Yeah.
negative pregnancy test. Like I said, that lasted for about 4 years. And I remember, April, very clearly, the last negative pregnancy test that I took. It was October of 2014. And
Mm-hmm.
we had just got done doing like this whole treatment with our doctor, and it was just like, our doctor so much as gave us like a golden ticket, like this is
Yeah.
going to work. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was so excited to take that test, and it was negative, and I was just like, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I remember having probably the most earnest conversation with God that I'd ever had. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't one of those like I'm giving up. It was, LaVista, like I can't do this. Like I
Right.
can't be in control of this anymore, because it's too much pressure and it hurts too bad. Right. So it's just like, I need, for you, if being a mom, even though it's one of my greatest desires, is not in the cards, I need you to make me okay with
Yeah.
that reality, if that's really what's supposed to happen. And, help my heart, because I don't want to be bitter, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
be able to authentically celebrate my friends, right, that are growing these families and having these
Right.
babies. And I don't want to feel a certain kind of way when I'm going to baby showers and going to birthday parties and going
Mm-hmm.
to hospitals to meet like this new miracle that was born. I want to be okay.
Yeah.
Right. And I want my heart to be okay. And it was just like, and if this is supposed to be part of my journey, you're just going to have to make it happen, because
Right.
I'm not taking another drug. I'm not getting another shot. I'm not going to another doctor's appointment. I'm not adhering to this like ridiculous sex schedule. Like we have to have sex at
Right.
9:07 tonight.
Oh,
Like
terrible.
it was ridiculous. And so I was like, I'm done. And fast forward, that December of 2014, I took another test, and it was positive.
Yay.
And so, the cub, he was officially here, and
Mm-hmm.
was able to carry him to term and gave birth to him in August of 2015 is when I had my miracle. And so over the past 5 years, we've continued to try to grow our family.
Right.
And in the past 5 years, I've had 4 pregnancies.
Mm-hmm.
However, my 3 youngest children have all died. I've suffered a
Right.
miscarriage with those last 3 pregnancies, and that's one of those things that you were talking about earlier that's so common, yet so untalked about.
Right.
Um, and I am coming to grips with the fact that I feel like I am tasked to help lead those conversations, right? About,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you know what, this is a common thing. You are not alone. 1 in 4 women deal with this.
Right.
And you know, here's what my journey has been like, and here's how, I can help you get through really like one of the hardest things that you are ever going to deal with in your life. Um, and so, if things had been different, we would have a 5-year-old and a 3 year
Mm-hmm.
old and a 1.5-year-old. And I would actually be, at the time of, recording this interview, 5 months pregnant.
Right.
But things didn't work out differently. And, so I now have the joys and the grief of motherhood to carry with me, really for the rest of my life.
Right.
So
Right.
that is, the Cliff Notes version, right, of my
Right.
motherhood journey.
Right. And you guys, I've known LaVista long enough that I have been on this journey. on a personal level with her. So I have shared with her those exciting moments
Mm-hmm.
of finding out that she's pregnant and believing and praying. And I have cried with her during those times when that pregnancy did not go to term. And so I've been able to watch her bounce back each and every time. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I was never the woman who kind of wanted the family. My daughter was a surprise. So I could not relate directly with that aspect, but I have dreams and I have desires. And many of you guys know my story of being divorced 3 times. And so my baby is that lasting marriage. So I understand those highs and those lows that you go through this process. But one of the things, LaVista, that I love about you is that instead of you allowing those situations to crush you, to bury you, like you said, you've now become a voice for women. You now champion those conversations, even though you're still walking out your journey. So along the way, one of the things that I love to focus on is asking for help. I think as women, particularly brown and black women, we are taught that you're supposed to be strong and you're just supposed to get over it and you're just supposed to move on. But I know that you have a great circle of people who love you. But what did asking for help look like, or who did you reach out to for help, whether it was professional or just personal, friends and family? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I it's kind of a two part thing here. One, it was continuing to kind of walk out my faith in that,
Hmm.
and having these talks with God, um,
Yeah.
and letting him know, like, dude, I'm angry. I
Yes.
am angry
Yes.
with you. Um, I'm angry with you.
Yeah.
And, I remember a friend of ours from the church, there was like a praise and worship that was going on, and she tagged me in it so that I could listen to it. And as I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this music and I'm praying, and like, it's like an angry prayer. Like, I'm
Hmm.
angry. Why did you let this happen? Right? Like, you could have stopped this. Like, you could have.
Right. Right.
But you didn't. And you know, a thing about me, I have dreams. And I
Hmm.
over the years, I have learned to just kind of accept that they are prophetic dreams, right? Like,
Yeah.
when I used to get them, I'm like, oh my God, like I had this like super weird dream. And I still think that they're weird, but like I understand that it
Yeah.
really is the way that like Holy Spirit talks to me in my dreams. And so honestly, April, with each of my pregnancies, especially the last three, Holy Spirit showed me actually what was
Hmm.
going to happen with those pregnancies, and I knew that my children were going to die. And so I remember, having like this like conversation, and about how upset and how hurt and how angry I was. And I
Yeah.
remember Holy Spirit, saying to me like clear as day, but I didn't lie to you.
Right.
You asked
Right.
me what was going to happen and I showed you, right? And
Right.
so hindsight, right? Later on in my journey when I'm able to kind of let go of this anger,
Hmm.
um, it was one of those things. Like, I think that, having those dreams about my children,
Hmm.
in a way prepared me, right,
Right.
for what was going to happen, so that everything wasn't like, I didn't feel like blindsided by the situation. Not that those dreams were the dreams that I asked for,
Right.
but, it was still the truth. And so it's like,
Hmm.
when I heard that, like, I didn't lie to you, it was just like, yeah. And like I could actually feel some of that anger start to melt away. And I was like, that's true. And but I didn't mean that the anger was gone. And
Right. Right.
in that anger, I was just I was in a really dark headspace, right? You
Hmm.
talked about like my bounce back. It wasn't immediate. There was
Right.
probably about an 18-month time frame between losing um my daughter and my youngest son, that
Hmm.
it was probably one of the worst times in my life, and
Right.
it definitely affected my marriage.
Hmm.
Because I was angry. I was angry at my husband. I was angry at everybody. I was angry at the world, right? That,
Right.
why is this happening to me, right? Why has this happened to my children? And I remember going to a Wednesday service and you were there.
Yep.
And I remember walking in because at that point, things were really kind of shaky with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I am done, having another one of these
Yeah.
conversations like I had, prior to getting pregnant the first time. I'm done. I'm done with this relationship. Like I'm done with this phase of my life. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm done. And when we get home from service, I'm just going to have to let him know like I'm out, right?
Right.
Like, and I remember, they're going through praise and worship, and I'm kind of standing up and just kind of going through the motions because it's like, I'd rather just kind of fake it instead of
Right.
like having
Right.
somebody come over, like, are you okay? Like, you should probably back away from me right now and
Right.
not ask me
Right.
crap. Um, and I remember, as Pastor got up to get ready to preach, like he always prays before he does that. And
Mm-hmm.
so he's praying and he's just like, there's somebody here that wants to quit. And I like literally opened my eyes and looked at him and I was like, I said, to God silently, I was like, oh, so we're doing this? We're doing this here? I'm
Right now?
like, okay,
Today?
right. And so he, is like, hey, if that's you need to come down to the altar. And of course, other people went down. But I remember watching the recording of this,
Mm-hmm.
this particular night, and I go down and I'm there at the altar, and pastor's praying and he's laying hands on people, and he'd stay a few minutes, come. He got to me, and I promise he stayed with me for like 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
And not only
Yeah.
did he pray for me, his wife, Pastor Erica, got up and prayed for, like, they surrounded me, right, in
Mm-hmm.
prayer. um and yeah, and so there were things that were said and whispered to me,
Right.
and Holy Spirit talked to me, and don't necessarily need to go into the details of that, and they went
Right.
on and they continued to pray with other people. But that night was for me, right? And it was just like,
Right.
I realized in that moment that God was so concerned with what was
Mm-hmm.
going on with me, he shut down a whole service. It was
Yeah.
just like,
Just to love on you.
let me tell you, right? Like, you're not done. You're not done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So that was one way I needed to ask for help, because it was like, your daughter, I am
Mm-hmm.
hurting. I'm
Yeah.
hurting and I'm angry, and I'm angry at you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be in this phase of my life anymore. I don't.
Right.
And the other thing was, therapy. Like, and I'm a component that I think that, especially if you're a believer, you need both sometimes in your
Yes.
life, depending on those seasons. You need Jesus and therapy. And, I think there's such a stigma around like going to see a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And there shouldn't be, right? It's just
No.
going to a therapist is just like going to a dentist or
Mm-hmm.
going to your general physician. Like, if you're not well, you need help.
Yes.
And I was not well. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I needed Jesus and I needed therapy. So that is where I asked for help for both.
Awesome. I think that should be a t-shirt. You need Jesus and therapy.
It is. It is a t-shirt.
Is it
It is
really?
yes, yes, it
Well, we
is.
need to order those because I think
Yes.
that is a perfect combination. I love how transparent you are about your anger with God,
Mm-hmm.
right? So a lot of times as Christians, we're taught, that you're not supposed to be mad at God. He's God. You're not supposed to be angry with him, but we get angry.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be honest with ourselves that sometimes we're angry with ourselves, we're angry with God, we're angry with other people. And so I was actually at that service that night, and it just warmed my heart to see the love that God showed you in that moment and the courage it took to, walk to the altar to receive that. And so, part of our journey, part of our healing process, part of our growth is that we have to do things
Mm-hmm.
in order to get to the next place. And so, in many cases, I know with me, as I was on my journey with relationships, I may have gone to counseling every now and again, or, I may have gone to God, but a key component that was missing at the time was I didn't do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And so in our healing journey, there's work that we have to do. And so just knowing your story, I love some of the specific things that you did to do the work, starting with, not caring what people thought about you walking to the front of the altar because you wanted that healing that bad. So share with us some of those things that you did along this journey where you're like, you know what, I've got to do the work to get back to where I need to be.
Yeah. So, one of the things was, I got selfish, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
put my needs at the forefront. And, I think that anybody like that knows me, I think would think that I am generally a very optimistic, positive, like cheery
Mm-hmm.
kind of like person.
Yes.
I wasn't that person
Mm-hmm.
in that season of my life. And I was becoming a person I actually didn't recognize, and I
Yeah.
wasn't too fond of her because, I mentioned earlier, like I married my college sweetheart, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I love this dude. Like he is like my best friend.
Yes.
But in that moment, like in our home, like I would see him walk down the stairs and like my whole like demeanor would change, and like
Mm-hmm.
it would just be like an instant like F you and what do you want? Right?
Yeah.
Like I don't even want to talk to you kind of a thing. And it was just like, what is wrong with you? Right. So it was just like I got selfish about understanding and acknowledging like what it was that I was feeling.
Yeah.
And then having that kind of internal dialogue of like, what is it that you need
Mm-hmm.
to get back to yourself, LaVista? And so, we talked about some of the things that happened with church and with Holy Spirit talking to me. And so after I that experience at church, I ran away from
Yes, you
my
did.
from my family because there was still so much going on. There, I think that was a definite turning point in my healing journey, but it wasn't an immediate turnaround, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
There
Yeah.
was still a lot of work left ahead. And so I needed, again, being selfish,
Mm-hmm.
and celebrating that selfishness, I left and I took a vacation by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up just like going to Ohio, right? But it
Yeah.
was so interesting when I posted this picture of me on the plane and I'm saying, hey, I'm gone. I'll be back, maybe, right? And
Right.
there were so many people like, well, I want to take a vacation. I want to go somewhere. I
Mm-hmm.
need a break. And I'm thinking to myself, well, then go. I
Go.
mean, Southwest flies to almost anywhere you want to go, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
get on
Mm-hmm.
and go buy a plane ticket and go somewhere. But I needed that time away to kind of process everything, right? Holy
Mm-hmm.
Spirit telling me this, happening at church, and really evaluating like where I was like in that season, what my relationship like with my husband was like, and I needed that time to
Mm-hmm.
process and to think and to like sleep. I took a lot of
Yes.
naps. I
Rest.
drank some wine. I did a lot of
Mm-hmm.
writing. There was a storm that came through while I was back home in Ohio, and I remember one night literally just standing out in the rain and just like
Oh.
letting the rain just kind of wash over me, right? Like I literally did everything that I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was away, I realized, you know what? I want this life
Mm-hmm.
that I have built. I want it with my husband. Like, I want to fight for myself and I
Yes.
want to fight for my marriage. So I packed my bags, left my vacation, and came back home. And then, that journey looked like having those hard conversations, right?
Right.
With my husband. And I think the first one was just asking him like, do you still love me? Because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell you, I was not an easy person to live with. Like I know I wasn't. And I think that part of it was like I was doing it on purpose, like, so that maybe I wouldn't have to make the decision to leave. Like he would just do it for
Right.
me, right? And just like
Right.
walk away, right? That didn't happen. He lived out his vows to his
Mm-hmm.
crazy wife in the moment. And
Bill
so
Stewart.
right. Yes, high five him when you see him and be like, man, like I heard this podcast, like, yeah, much love to you, brother. But yeah, having those conversations, that was the first one. And he was just like, of course I love you. And I'm like, okay, like we've got work to do, right? And so then it was just
Yeah.
like, us going through therapy, me going through therapy, those kind of things. Another step in that journey, um I had to forgive, you know, um,
Mm-hmm.
during that piece. I had to let go of that anger and, forgive God for not intervening the way that I thought that he should,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because
Mm-hmm.
clearly, even though like I, will probably never have the answers while I'm on earth as to why my children didn't live, there had to be a reason,
Right.
right? Um, I don't know what that reason is, but hanging on to that unforgiveness wasn't doing me any favors.
Mm-hmm.
I had to forgive my husband, for things that took place during those pregnancies and afterwards, and things like that that helped to strain our relationship. I
Right.
had to forgive him to get my friendship back, because
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the most important friendships that I have and will
Right.
ever have. And so I knew that I needed to do my part in mending that. And then I also had to forgive my body, because
Yes.
I, in the talking about being angry, I was angry with my body. Like I felt like my body had failed me. And part of that was going through just kind of an acceptance of what my
Mm-hmm.
body has done for me. It has helped create life 4 times,
Yeah.
right? Like my body has housed, like, not including my own heartbeat, 4 heartbeats.
Mm-hmm.
And with my son, it has nourished him, to incubate in there, right, for the whole
Right.
time, and carried, this like super healthy, very energetic, smart, charismatic, amazing, son.
Yes.
It helped me sustain his life, like once he was here, because we had a breastfeeding journey together.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, you know what? My body is kind of amazing. I'm like,
Yeah.
I created, carried, and sustained life with this same body, right? And I'm like, I
Right.
need to give it a little grace.
Yeah.
So I had to go through that as well. And then really the last piece there, which is, kind of ongoing, is sharing my story, because I do think
Yes.
that it resonates with women that are dealing with the same thing. Because, the stat there's 1 in 4. 1 in 4
Right.
women deal with child loss,
Yeah.
either like in early pregnancy or, later on,
Mm-hmm.
where they're not able to carry those children to term. And it's so common, but yet the conversation is so uncommon.
Right.
And sharing those stories along the way, really from all of it, from like the infertility,
Mm-hmm.
pieces, all the way through the pregnancies um, not going the way that we wanted them to go. Sharing those stories have helped not only me, but I know that they've helped other women, because even though um, they don't necessarily comment on things that like I
Mm-hmm.
share publicly, they will text me, or they will,
Right.
drop me a DM and let me know that, like, hey, like that resonated, like your story is very similar to mine.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing that you have been able to like keep living and keep going and continuing to thrive gives me hope that I can do the same thing.
Yes. Yes. I love the fact that you shared how this affected your whole life. So when
Hmm.
we look at a lot of times from the outside, looking at a woman who has lost a child or miscarried, we think of just the pregnancy,
Hmm.
right? So we think, okay, she's just going through this, but there can be so many other things that this affects. So it affected you personally, it affected your marriage, it affected your relationship with God. And so I'm glad that you shared how widely that net was cast in your life, because it goes to show that doing the work is not always just one thing. So for you doing the work, it was doing the work with being okay with your body and loving your body again, doing the work with having to have hard conversations with your husband. And I'm grateful that you guys are still together, because I think you guys are the cutest thing ever, honestly. If you guys ever see a picture of them, they are the cutest thing ever, you know. And then also doing the work to get back to your relationship with God. And I love the grace that he has on our lives, where he can just sit back and be like, okay, daughter, I'll just wait. I know you're
Hmm.
angry, but I'll wait. I'll just be here. And that when that time comes and we're ready to take the next step, God is there with open arms, like, all right, come on back, let me love on you, let me hug on you.
Hmm.
So I know during this journey, because like I said, you have kind of a wide circle, or a circle of, friends, family, people who are close to you, who I'm sure are quick to give advice. And so what is some of the maybe, cherished pieces of advice that you received? And maybe what's a piece of advice that you're like, you know what, you could have kept that you
Yeah.
received
Yeah.
along your journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. One that immediately comes to mind as far as wisdom, right?
Mhm.
I remember Pastor Erica reaching out to me, and she was just like, how are you doing?
Mm.
And I'm thinking to myself, well, this is my pastor. She is, she's, the first lady. Like, do I filter myself when I respond to her,
Right.
or do I tell her the truth? I mean, because she's the one that did reach out to me. And I basically was like, I'm not okay and I'm
Mhm.
angry. And she was just like, okay. She was like, be angry. Right. And because I'm thinking like she's gonna like hit me up with like all these like scriptures and
Right.
prayer. And she's like,
Right.
be angry. And I'm like, huh, okay, right. And I think that that it was one of those things that helped me remember my feelings are valid,
Yeah.
right? And it's not my job to hide what my actual feelings are for the sake of somebody
Mhm.
else's comfort, right? So though I did not necessarily enjoy what that
Mhm.
18 months felt like, especially the strain that it put on my relationship with my husband. I think that I would have done myself so much more damage if I had just stuffed that down and tried to act like
Right.
everything was okay.
Right.
So yeah, that was a hard, hard season in our relationship. But my feelings aren't less important than his, right?
Absolutely.
So I was angry, and it was just like, you guys are just gonna have to deal with it
Yep.
temporarily until I can get it together,
Right.
right? But yeah, but my feelings, they were valid, and I don't have to hide them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I think worst advice, and I think that we kind of touched on it already, but it's that well-meaning
Mhm.
advice that's like, don't react, because
Right.
you've got to be strong, right?
Right.
You can't you can't not show that you're not okay. You got to be strong. Got to be
Mhm.
strong, as if showing that I'm human, right?
Right.
Showing that I'm grieving, showing that I'm in pain, showing that I'm hurt, showing that I'm angry
Right.
somehow makes me not enough in
Mhm.
that moment in my life, which that's not right.
No, it's not.
It's not right. Right. And I think that in doing so, like advising people that way, you are potentially keeping them from getting the help that they actually need. Right. Because, like, if I
Mhm.
didn't acknowledge the fact that I'm feeling all this stuff in being strong, I probably
Right.
wouldn't have gone to therapy. My husband and I probably wouldn't have gone to therapy because, I'm being strong. I'm the strong wife.
Right.
I'm the strong mother. I'm the strong woman. And I've got my, superwoman cape on, and I don't need
Mhm.
no help.
Right.
That's a lie. I needed all of the help. I needed
Right.
all of the help from all of the people.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Girl,
yeah,
take that cape off.
yeah,
Just go and take it off. Just go and take it off and get you some help.
yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I think about some of the advice that people give sometime. And I'll tell you, my daughter has this saying: when someone frustrates her, she says that she hopes their pillow is warm on both sides when they go to sleep at
Oh,
night.
that's hilarious. That is
But people
hilarious.
mean well. They do. They typically, I believe, they mean well, but sometimes it's like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I think they do mean well, but I think that I could write a book on, I mean, quite honestly, the stupid things that people
oh yeah.
say, especially to like a woman who's grieving her
Right.
children. They'd be
Right.
like, don't say these things. And I think it would
Yes.
be like a bestseller, because like some of the stuff that I have heard has been like, did you seriously just say that to me?
Right.
Like, did you think that that was comforting in any kind of way? Because it was not.
Right.
You should never say those things to anybody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I want to ask you, so we are women in our fabulous 40s and living life
Okay.
amazingly,
Hmm.
but it wasn't always that way, right? We had to get here. There was a journey to get here. So if you could look back and talk to your younger self, what advice would you give her?
Um, I would tell her to continually try to master practicing self-compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that as we grow and we get older and, we start developing these other significant relationships, right? Like your significant other and, like
Hmm.
your relationships with like, your career and those kind of things, like if you're not careful, you lose parts of yourself,
Yeah.
right? That you stop being connected with. But I think that if you are continually consciously, purposely practicing self compassion,
Hmm.
checking in with yourself, like, hey, how are you?
Yes.
Hey, what do you need? Right. And then actually taking action on those
Hmm.
things, right? Then you're always going to be self aware of what's going on
Yeah.
with you. And it's like, okay, things aren't right. I need to go talk to somebody. Okay, this
Hmm.
isn't right. This is what I need. This is going on. This is where I need the help. And all of those things are encompassed under practicing self compassion. There's a quote that I love that if your compassion doesn't include yourself, it's incomplete.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That is so good. And I think we are, particularly as women, so hard on ourselves sometimes. We are the last person that we bestow grace upon, forgiveness upon. And so I love having self compassion. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. So, LaVista, if there's a woman out there that is overworked, they need to find some balance in life, they need some self care tips, where can they connect with you?
Yeah, the easiest way, you can connect with me on my website. You can just go to lavistajones.com and you can connect with me there. If you're really into social media, the platforms I'm on, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, it's simple, just LaVista Jones there as well. I try to keep it as simple as possible across the board. And LaVista is a pretty unique name, right?
Yes.
So yeah, it's just LaVista Jones, and you will find me, and I would love to connect with you.
Awesome. Well, LaVista, I am so grateful that you took the time out of your not so busy schedule, because this girl practices self care like no other, but took time out of your schedule to chat with me today. And I pray that your story, your words of wisdom will bless someone along their journey, whether it's the same as yours or not. And to my audience, if you guys are in need of a breakthrough and you need some help doing that, look me up at aprilnowlin.com and connect. And I'd love to support you on your journey of chasing your purpose. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. All right, y'all. Now, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I pray that it encourages you and you were able to laugh a little bit along the way. Now, if you know someone who has a story of resilience, restoration, and winning at life, let me know. I would love to share their story with my audience. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you guys don't miss a beat. If you want to connect with me, hop over to aprilnowlin.com, where you can learn all about how I help women to cultivate their purpose so they can impact more people. You can connect with me on Facebook and Instagram and Clubhouse under April Nowlin. Thanks again for listening.